Morning, morning.
Oi, oi, you all right?
We're back again.
We are. It's a Monday.
It is.
And it's race week.
So that
doesn't really help much because Jack's poorly, so I don't know whether they're coming racing now. And I've got too much to do.
Dude.
So
what happened
let's
to
get
him?
through the intro.
Sorry, go on.
Let's get through the intro. I'll tell you what happened to Jack, and then we'll go and measure a crank, because I've got to do that. Biggity boop. Boom. Engine room.
Engine room.
We should have an intro music for the engine room.
I shall see if I can find some.
Bing, 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 bing.
Or shouldn't it be some more sort of like an aggressive guitar riff? Or maybe something a bit more subdued.
Yeah.
For
like Happy Place. No?
Or something that, reflects concentration and numbers. And
Not like when you go on a spa day and you lie down for massage and it's like la 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 music.
I don't know. I've never been to a spa day.
Never been to a spa day?
No.
Have you? It can't be a good spa day, mate.
Have you done a spa day?
Yeah, I've done one the other week. Okay, one spa day. It was nice. Had a massage.
Lovely.
And then come back to work. And then it undid all the hard work.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
If you don't build engines, then this is new to you. If you do build engines, then you probably know what I'm about to do, but sometimes different manufacturers do it different ways. So if you build an Audi engine or you build a Hurricane engine, then on the end of the crankshaft is 5 letters which signify the size of the main journals. So it might be BBBBG, which is blue, 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 green. G, yellow. I don't know. They mean something. You have to look it up, right? Because we don't do it that way anyway. We measure them properly so I can get the specs I want. And then on the crankcase, there's another set of letters. And then that signifies the upper bearing you order. So you literally go, oh, yeah, it's 5 Bs. And you just go onto Etka and you order 5 blue bearings. Yeah, that's how you do it. So if you are used to building motorbike engines, then it can be similar where you get codes on the block and codes on the rods and codes on the crank. So that's again similar. But sometimes I'm more used to this, where you would measure out your journals, yeah, and then you would measure out your crankcase, and then depending on where those two values intersect, tells you which bearing colour you need, right? So if we measure our number one main bearing journal, it will fall between those two numbers. Yeah?
Yep.
62.986 to 62.992. That puts us in this one.
Yep.
Yeah? Or 62.979 to 62.985. That puts us in this row. So straight away, just by measuring your crank, puts you in line 1 or line 2. Then you get your crankcase in, which we'll do, and you measure then your journal, your bore housing size. So little diameter, big diameter. And then that will tell you which one of those two you need to be in. So it'll either be a blue, yellow sit in the middle as they cross over the two crank sizes, and then green. So our 3 options are blue, yellow, or green.
Yep.
For Ferraris for this 458 engine, and that's what we're trying to figure out. I know what the bearing sizes are, so I might modify all these to suit the size I want because it's the engine I want. But first off, we need to understand what everything measures up at so we can then pick our bearings. It's exactly the same with a com rod. You measure the crank, yeah, and that puts you in line 1 or line 2. Then you get the rod, you torque it up, and then that tells you whether you get in a red, a blue, or black.
Yep.
And then you know what bearings you're ordering. But it's been a while since we've measured up a crank, so I was just going to measure up a crank. So this is a Mitutoyo 50 to 75 mil micrometer with a new battery in.
That is well prepared,
Very important because they eat batteries. So we just wind it all the way back into 50mm so we can put it on the calibration set. But in theory, this should say 50, 000. Just get on it square. Oh, bastard. How good was I? Nope. I've just set this as well. Wow.
There we go.
Just sat, all right?
Precision right there.
So we know we need to be at just under 63mm. So wind it all the way out. Now this mic plugs into my engine logbook as well through that little port here.
Yep.
So all I do there is when I plug the cable in, I've got a little orange button. So when I'm measuring up to go in engine logbook, which I'll do later when I assemble it, I can just literally go whoop, beep, beep, that quick.
Yep.
What I want to do at the minute here is fill out a build sheet because I need to work out my bearings.
Yep.
So we're expecting this to be just under 63mm. So Ferrari say you should measure it in 2 places. Yeah. And the 2 places are essentially where the upper bearing runs, because remember the middle's got a groove.
Of course.
Yeah. So what they're saying is, in theory, right, that will be thicker, in theory, than those 2 spaces.
Yep.
So Ferrari say to measure those 2 spaces.
Okay.
Because half the bearing has a massive gap around it in the centre for the oil. Right? To be fair, we can have a little measure and see what it does. So I measured it a minute ago and I got 62,981. So again, just come back and on a click. You know you're on a piss because it doesn't.
There we go, it's close.
Just don't bang your mic around. The same there then. I'll have a pinch up or it'll go on. Don't force it. But if it's the same kind of, it's the same as a feeler gauge.
Yeah.
You can drive it, you can get them to drive on more. 62,977. But like that doesn't go on there. So we've got 62,982. $62,973.
So obviously keeping quiet here because there's concentration involved. So I shall just film.
So what I did here was wrote out. None of them are over the 80, so they're all under 885. Yeah, so they're all going to be this row. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're either going to be yellow or greens.
Yep.
So what we need to do now is measure get our crankcase in here and measure our journals in our crankcase, or our bore diameter in our crankcase, and then we can see which ones we want.
Sounds like a plan.
Let me get that in and then we'll measure it up.
Okay.
Look, Dad, my doors work.
Aha!
Torque settings. It's a bloody good book, this is.
This is the book that came from Turkish Matt.
Yes. This is his recipe book.
This is.
Lower crankcase shell to crankcase. Pre-tightening torque for nut, 60. And then 30 then 60. Bosh. No bearing shells in the crankcase.
Yes.
Crankcase is clean. And it's spent the weekend, because obviously it goes through a hot wash, and it's spent a weekend then, settling temperature-wise. Same as the crank did.
Yeah.
So like, if you take it out of hot wash and you measure it, you can't. So everything's been through the hot wash. It'll all go back through again as well. Because there are some areas, if you look on this, that are still a little bit grubby.
You're not quite happy with.
Yeah. It was more a case of getting 25, 2, 4, 6, 8, up to 60. No point measuring a bearing clearance if you're not going to torque it right. Have you watched the first episode of Mobland?
Do you know what? I haven't, but I've been waiting to watch it.
It's good.
That's the one with Tom Hardy and Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, Tom Hardy can't act, but
He's just Tom Hardy, isn't he?
just Tom Hardy.
It's one for
But
the one.
Pierce Brosnan is good in it.
Yeah. So was it Irish mob family?
Yeah. So Helen Mirren
Yep.
and of course she's just done 1923 with Harrison Ford, where she's Irish.
Aha.
So she's quite good at the accent.
He says
Wasn't it at all?
in a Scottish accent.
Right.
We digress.
We do. So I've torqued this, and now essentially what I want to do is measure to fucking all.
Right there.
Like that,
Okay.
right? And to do that,
See,
we use a selection of expensive tools. That's to get me working.
or a wooden box. This feels quite old school.
Yeah, I don't know whether this is going to... What do I need to be? 66. Might not get the sweep on this Davlar that I want.
Okay. Is that your...
Yeah, because I'm 3 mil out.
Tools in wooden cases are the way forward. They are very cool.
Yeah, because 63, I won't get to sweep on the gauge. I won't get to sweep on the gauge because I need to be at 66.6 and I'm 3 mil out. And if I give you an idea. Oh, look, a dead battery, Davlar.
Who'd have thunk it, hey?
Fucking surprised that
In one
is.
of our videos.
Setting tool. So what you do is you calibrate out your mic with a setting ring, 76.2. Then I'll wind it in to 66.685 mil on this gauge. Then I sit the bore mic in it and I set my preset to 66.85. So that's calibrated number now. So if I rock this back and forth, we'll do it. It is there because I bloody spent ages trying to get it set up. There you go. So that's set up. So what that means we can do now is drop that off the gauge or drop that off the set.
Yep.
Yeah. So then I can do, see if we can do it this way. No, it's not going to have it. You come and do it over my shoulder though, because you can see the gauge.
Oh, yeah, of course.
$66.65. 652.
Yep.
.652. When you do it like this. 66.662. Let's just write that down. .661. You can see what I'm trying to do. Look, I'm trying to go through
Through the hole.
Yeah. Well, two bores give you an idea, right? So if we then go back to our, they're all under 8498. 1.844 to 1.849, so it's 66.682 to 66.688. .675, so we're all under. So everything's going to be a yellow. And then I'll measure those ones out as well. But that's the, I could 834, 839. So what do we think? Let me go and get a rod bearing in a minute.
Okay.
So 1.736. Well, they're pretty worn. But basically what you're looking at there is, I was just making sure that the number that the number they were putting here was bearing thickness.
Okay.
So it's 1.834 to 1.839, 1.839 to 1.844, 1.839 to 1.844. So we've got so we're out the bottom here. So we've got a big, we've got a small crankcase journal. Yeah, so if you think about it this way.
Ready or not, here comes science. They might be giants, here comes science.
So that's your crank journal, yeah?
Yep.
So our biggest gap is 66.688 mil, and our smallest is 66.675, right? So we are, at the minute, we're under our smallest. So that's tight and that's loose, yeah? Which is why you can't have a big crank pin and a tight journal. There's no bearing for it. Yeah, it wants you to open the journal up.
Yep.
Then if we go to our crank, yeah. So again, then our biggest is 62.985 to 62.979. No, it's 992, Rick. 992, because it's this one. And 62.979. Yeah, and then we're measuring 62.976, 980, 976, 976, 973. So we're at the bottom. So we've got a slightly worn crank, yeah? So we've got a tight journal, and we've got a small crank. So what we've done is this is why the window moves. Look, it goes from there to here. It doesn't come down. It actually has to change then, depending on your crank bore, because do you see what I mean? Like if I had a small crank and a really big, that's the furthest apart, yeah?
Yep.
So if you go crank, and what do we have? 973 and 992, and then you go block, and we go 675 to 688. Yeah. So tight is a big crank and a small journal. So this is tight. Yeah.
Yep.
So we want a small a thin bearing. Yeah.
Yep.
And then if we have a small crank, so 979. Bloody hell, Rick. Yeah, well, it has to be that way, doesn't it? So a big block hole,
Yep.
and a small crank is loose. So then you want a thick bearing. Yeah? And that's kind of like your line.
Yep.
Right? So at the minute, that pen is absolute piss.
It's a little bit light.
HCF, please, mate. MoTeC HCF. So crank-wise, block-wise, we are 661, so we're at the bottom.
That's better.
Yeah. And then rod journal-wise, we're at the bottom.
Yep.
So we're here.
Okay.
So then that goes the other way then. So if you've got, trying to think, how is the best way to describe this without fucking everybody's, including my own head up? A tight block, so a small crank. Yeah, your window's the other way around. Essentially then, so basically, all right, so that's your variance. So what you've got now is you've essentially got 992 is that one, yellow, 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 green. 992 is 675. Well, that's yellow. Yeah.
Yep.
992, 688, 681, 675 on the case, 675 on the case. And then that's blue. No, that's blue. Because that's thick, wet green, sorry. That's green. And then that's blue. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right.
It's a good graphical representation. So.
Yeah, so if you measure out anywhere in this zone,
Yeah.
yeah, depending on your variance across the two, your yellow bearings. If you're in this extremity, yeah, where you need big bearings to take up, depending on where you are with the rod,
Yep.
or if you're tight because of this way. But then remember, the reason it comes up here is because you can be here on the block,
Yeah.
but here on the crank, and you still need blue bearings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how I do it. What's the best way? I think Yamaha's got a really good one of doing this. My McLaren one was good as well.
Well, have we got a graphic we can use?
Yeah, 2 seconds. So there you go. That's a better way of showing it.
Oh.
So that's McLaren bearing chart. So you've got main housing across the top and crankshaft measurement across the bottom. And then depending on where you measure those two items at, is you drop into bearing blocks. So you get reds, blue, greens, and yellows.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So that's what I've tried to draw.
Yeah.
McLaren's a good way of sort of showing it. So yeah. So we're going to need yellows. Because we're tight, but it's a race engine, so I want to go a step up.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll work it up, but I think it'll end up with the clearance. With what I've measured and the clearance I want, I think I'll end up on yellows. Because you always try and go a little bit looser
Yeah.
rather than tighter on a race engine, or especially on the engine that does that. So what I've got to do now is I've got to do the same thing for the rods. I've obviously measured the crank out.
Yeah.
So now I've got to do, there's no point me, because it's basically exactly the same as what I've showed you. Measure the big end journal,
Yeah.
clamp the rods up and measure the rods.
Yep.
And then we work out where our bearings need to be. And it's the same kind of thing. So on the, we have red, blues and blacks to choose from on rods.
Okay.
And it's the same thing.
Wow. So yet again,
make sense?
we get a window into why the engine
Takes so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because again, like with that, you take it out and you clean it, but it's pointless measuring it if you've got to machine it, or if you've got to polish it, or if you've got to do anything, because the measurements are useless.
Yeah.
So now you take it out, you clean it, you send it away, you get it machined, you bring it back, and you measure it. You kind of do your measuring as you're doing machining. So it's like Kev will kind of watch the numbers as he's doing it, but because you don't want them all over the place. So then you might have to balance the crank measurements out. Yeah?
Yeah.
Then you measure your block up, and you stress it, and you measure your block up, and you might have to line hone it because it's all out of alignment.
Yeah.
Or then numbers are different, so you have to hone it to size. So then, but you've got to do all this, being careful that you've only got 3 choices of bearings.
Yeah.
So you can't start coming out at the end of your table because you've machined the crank, you've machined the block, so you've made the block hole bigger, and you've polished the crank, and you've made the crank smaller.
Yep.
You've got nowhere here to go.
Nowhere to go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah? So that's what you got to be careful of with this. Which is why a lot of the engine builds we do, we'll try to stick with OEM bearings.
Yeah.
Because we have that variance. If I say to you, like, ACLs, standard, probably haven't got a set of +25s. No, because they're on McLaren ones. So standards, but they're McLarens, like reds and blues.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't even got a box written on that says plus. And then here, look, SWA are all one colour. GLBs are yellow, SWAs are black. So again, you juggling, and then you might go, right, well, I need one colour on the bottom and one colour on the top.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just have to be careful where you end up. Where you end up once you've done your machining or once you've done your measuring. So then now this is done, we'll order the bearings, then we dry assemble it and then measure it.
Yeah.
Because you can make mistakes.
Yeah.
So you don't just then slap it all together assuming it's all right. So you measure your bearings, measure that, work out all your numbers, and then you'll assemble it. And like if you just want a visual check, if it's a new engine you've never done before or you're worried about anything, you plastic gauge it. That gives you a good visual representation of what's been going on. And then, yeah, you carry on. But
it's a lot of stop, start, assemble, disassemble.
Yeah. Like that now, I've put that together, I've talked it all up.
Yeah.
You'll go, I'll remeasure it.
Yeah.
And we'll measure it, and then I'll take it all back apart, and it'll get cleaned again. It'll get brushed, everything it needs to do, and then it'll come back in, and it'll get assembled again. And then if I find something out of spec, it comes all back apart. We do it again.
Start again.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's all right. Just, yeah, you can see I haven't finished cleaning it. I haven't done anything with the liners. I haven't pulled the liners out. But I had to measure up my bearings.
Yeah.
Because that's the next step.
Yeah.
Because I need to be able to, I need to order everything.
Yeah.
So, cool.
There we go.
All right.
Yeah.
But this is now you understand why I've got all these things, all this equipment,
Yeah.
because you can't measure it with a fucking tape measure. So, but then your tools are only as accurate as you.
Yep.
So if I set the gauge up wrong because I've missed something there, well, my measurements are wrong.
Yep.
So like now we're a little bit, we're under on what I would expect. So I'll remeasure everything again when you're gone to make sure I haven't made a mistake setting that up or setting that up.
Sure.
But yeah.
So there we go.
There we go, mate. There we go.
So, yeah. That's that.
Carry on cleaning it all up and get it back in here. So yeah, we'll be all right. We'll
Cool.
be all right. All right.
So we'll
Sweet.
wait for the next instalment. Of,
Yeah. If anyone's got any bright ideas or what I did wrong, then drop me a message. What did I miss? So no, it's all good. We'll get there.
Cool.
Right. I'll take it back apart now then. Well, no, I'll measure it first, then I'll take it back.
Okay.
Cool. See you on the next one.
See you later, bud. Right.